Yay! Welcome everyone to the show today. If you're watching this on YouTube, you saw two bells. Reverend Julie and I both had our own bell and decided that I was going to keep this momentum going after Reverend Michael was on the show and I wanted to ding the bell. So if you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to click below and take it with you on the podcast. And if you're listening on the podcast, come on over to jjflazanes.tv and check us out because we're going to have a lot of fun. Today's conversation I've been looking forward to for several reasons. Reverend Julie has been at Agape for a while, and I've seen her speak on countless occasions, and she's very powerful, and I like her very much. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is super timely with what's going on in the world, with what's going on in my business, and maybe what's going on in your business. But I think it's a message that crosses all gaps. It doesn't matter race, religion, sexual orientation, age. This is about your uniqueness and why it matters. So, Reverend Julie, thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so glad to be with you. Thank you.
All right, let's talk. Where do we start with your uniqueness matters?
So, you know what? I think it's really pertinent right now, especially given the year that we've had, because there's so many things happening. And I know for myself, it could feel really overwhelming. Like, where do I begin? Like there's so many needs is what it feels like happening in the world. And the truth is that we can't all do everything, but we can all do something, right? And so that makes me feel a little bit more calm, like it's not all on my shoulders, right? But when I'm on my thing, when I'm doing what I am, what was planted inside of me when I came into this life, that brings a little extra, it brings extra magic, passion, energy when I'm on me, as opposed to trying to be somebody else. And so if we're all doing our thing, then I can rest assured that somebody is going to make sure that they're out there saving the manatees, and somebody's going to, take care of the forests, and somebody's going to be on our children. And everything gets handled when we handle our business. So for me, I came to this, your uniqueness matters, because I sort of felt like mud for a lot of my life. I felt very kind of good at a lot of things, not really special at anything. And I didn't know what my what is. That's the name of my book. I didn't know what my thing was. And so the steps that I took and the journey that I took to get really clear about it, I thought would be useful to other people as well. I know it in many senses, it just saved my life to get clear about why I'm here. And it made life more fun.
It's a process for all of us to get to that place, right? And sort of where we start. So why don't we go back to, the work that you're doing in the world, was it the work you thought you'd be doing? Was it the path that you saw years ago? Or was it, again, going from A to B and then, C's over here? And I didn't think I'd be doing that when I was over here at A.
Yeah. I really didn't have any idea what I could possibly have to offer. Like, I'm a nice person, I didn't really know what my particular gifts or skills were, but I started taking notice, and I realized I just happened to be at the side of very famous people frequently. And it was frustrating to me, because I thought, is that what I'm meant to be? Like, I'm just going to be like a sidekick. And it took a long period of time before I was able to look back and realize there's a role that I played in all of those people and why they selected me to work with them. And then I realized that role that I played is actually the gift that I have to share in the world. Can I tell you the story of it?
Please.
It's so powerful to me. It was like light bulbs going off. So when I was a teenager, I was living in New York City. I was pen pals with a friend of mine, an artist. He lived in Paris. The nature of our friendship is that I would write him these long, tormented letters about my young angst of what is the meaning of life and why am I here? And the way that he would correspond back with me was by sending me one of his canvases of his works of art with a little inscription to me on it, right? And so this one went on for a period of time. And then after a while, I moved, he moved, we lost touch, decades pass. And then I got a phone call one day out of the blue, and it was this guy. And so it was nice to catch up with him. But I noticed that after a while, I started feeling kind of badly about myself, because he had gone on to become extremely famous. And I knew all about him because I'd read about him in People magazine or Entertainment Tonight. But so I wasn't feeling so good about myself. So after a while, I was like, okay, great catching up, got to go. And he said, well, I just wanted to call and thank you. And I said, for what? And he said, well, you were my muse, M-U-S-E. And I didn't really know what that meant. I was a little offended by it. I got off the phone and then I looked it up, and it said source of inspiration. I have an emotional reaction just saying that right now, because I realized that my whole life, from my dynamic in my family growing up to all the people that used to want to keep me around, that I supported, there was something about inspiration that's part of my gift in the world. And so I had that beautiful moment. And the little extra bonus point here for everybody listening: when you're on your thing, it will source you. So if that's not motivation enough to find your purpose and your passion, it will source you. So I was telling a girlfriend about my phone call with this guy, and she said, well, if you were his muse and he became all successful, he owes you some money, right? And as soon as she said that, a light bulb went off. And I remembered all those years that we were corresponding. He had said to me, you should keep these canvases in a safe place. They're going to be worth a lot of money someday. So I went digging through my storage unit. I found where I'd kept them all in a shoebox folded up. And I sent them to a girlfriend of mine who is an art collector in New York City. And so she cleaned them up. She has them displayed nicely. And she said, you're sitting on a fortune. Now, I probably won't sell them, but it's extraordinary to think how I spent so much time feeling like, why am I always supporting other people? Why am I always, but that's the thing that was planted inside of me. So now I make a living off of it, and it energizes me because I'm on my thing. So that's my story about how I came to find clarity about my uniqueness, and we keep growing. So what I'm here to do keeps expanding. That's why we stay on it, on the different tools and practices I mentioned. It's good to re-up on them yearly, because we're growing and evolving. That's the point.
Well, every success story usually has a bit of struggle and contrast in the beginning. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm curious to know, if you're willing to share, your astrological sign. What is your astrological? Okay, so am I. I'm I feel you in so many ways. Do you have any siblings?
Oh, we're going to really do this.
I'm not going to go down.
Okay, don't judge.
Middle?
Yes, I'm a middle child.
Okay. All right. Do you happen to know your moon sign?
I don't.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. And what did you major in, or what did you think you were going to be doing before you happened upon looking to others to sort of, not looking to others, but you noticed a pattern, and then the pattern became empowering because you took your power of that pattern and thought, oh, I'm helping to inspire and give them energy. But prior to that realization, sometimes it's a struggle because, I don't know, were you a black sheep? Were you that person in your family who would, do things that were maybe outside of their comfort zone, or see things differently, or challenge belief systems?
I feel like I'm smiling along with all the listeners because I have a feeling a lot of us can relate to that. Yeah, I went on this path. I grew up having astral travel experiences and seeing angels, and I come from a business family, so what? So I had a lot of experiences growing up. I studied psychology and classical literature, and I just figured I'd be in a helping field somehow. I did have a one-on-one practice where I did some psychology, Neuro Linguistic Programming. I've studied energy work with Barbara Brennan. So I had all these different tools that I did, and I did one-on-one work for a while and enjoyed that. But we keep evolving. So what I realize now is what was happening in those one-on-one sessions is it was preparing me for what I do in front of large groups now. I was kind of practicing in a very intimate, small setting. Yeah.
Was there a moment, and I'm speaking from right in this moment, red hot, in evolution, in expansion, in growth stages, was there a pivotal moment of saying, and I'll give you the small example. So I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years, but throughout that time, learning science of the body, I, of course, asked the deeper questions, because once you fix the spine and you fix the diet and you fix the hormones and someone still has back pain, there has to be another reason in terms of what it is. And, and as a Pisces, knowing that everything is energy and everything is emotion and that most people hate hearing that. If you ask them if they have stress, oh yeah, hands go up. Oh yeah, I'm stressed. But tell them that it's emotional. What do you mean it's emotional? I'm like, stress is emotional. I'm not sure why you're not making that connection. I guess it's a difference of victim mentality. Stress is out there. Stress is versus in here. It's my perception that creates the stress versus someone else doing it to me. But so through my time as a trainer, I was boxed in as a trainer. Even though I was asking the deeper questions, I was doing the deeper work. I learned law of attraction. I'm really good with behavioral psychology and astrology and using all these different tools to uncover patterns and behaviors and belief systems and help to shift those. But the clients that I had originally, who had still been with me, had no interest in any of that. I was evolving and they were not. So stepping outside of that for a long time, or trying to, became super uncomfortable. The relationship I was in was uncomfortable with me claiming things that I was not qualified to talk about because I didn't have a degree in it. People who were branding me, who were filming me, who wanted to do things, wanted me to stay in my lane of what you're known for. I was named Best Personal Trainer in Los Angeles in 2007 by Elite Traveler magazine. I've got a ton of press. So stay in your lane. You're known for that. Well, I don't want to be in this lane because this isn't the lane that makes, this isn't what lights me up. This isn't like, I've moved beyond this. It's not just about what we look like, how we exercise and what we eat. There is an energetic component to this about how you do it. There's all those wonderful sciences. So for me, stepping into in 2018 and saying, you know what, I'm going to do an event after my podcast was, I have several shows and the most popular one is called Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And when I launched it, very quickly, I got a lot of feedback and it went like gangbusters. And it was based on law of attraction and astrology and meditation and intuition. And so I had all this feedback and I gave it a year. And then I thought, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to step out into the world and say, this is now who I am. I do all of this publicly. And it was a scary transition. And I did it with not necessarily the most amount of support. So is there a time where you were like, whatever you were, and then you decided to sort of rebrand or expand kind of in a scary, oh my God, am I doing this kind of way? What are people going to think? Or am I going to get criticized? Are they going to tell me that I'm not qualified to do this? Was there a moment for you of that?
Yeah. You know, what I'm thinking of is, so it says on my title, I'm a reverend. It's with the Agape International Spiritual Center, which is trans-denominational. It includes every religion you can think of, every color, creed, race, everybody comes to Agape. And it's a spiritual license is what it is. And I remember as I was going through the classes, and at first I became a practitioner, and the people in my world were like, fine, she's a practitioner. Nobody really knows what that means. And then I kept growing and I kept taking classes with Michael Beckwith, and I went through the ministerial program, and then I got that title, Reverend. And I noticed, like, I'll always remember I had a family member over, and I lived at that time in like this tiny 1-bedroom apartment. It takes 10 seconds to walk around, but I was showing her my place. And I remember, so living room, bedroom, done. But she caught a glimpse of my bathroom, and in my bathroom, hanging over the railing, was my ministerial shawl. And it's just this beautiful purple velvet thing that I wear, for graduation. And I remember her calling her husband in and saying, "Oh, honey, look." And I'm like, "Why do you want to show him my bathroom?" Like, I didn't get it. But in the mirror, I watched, and she was horrified that I was a minister. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I remember there was a while where I wasn't comfortable with it. And what I noticed is, as I began to embody this title, which what it means to me is I've just committed my life to growing and expanding as much as I can. That's what it's representative of to me. As I've become more comfortable with it, the people that were uncomfortable, either they fall away or they just like get it. It's when I was wavering that I think there's like a weakness in the field and people like descend. But as soon as I became like really fine with it, people call me Julie, people call me Reverend Julie, whatever it is. Like I'm not attached because I am it. So the title doesn't matter anymore. But as I was in transition, and I'm sure that there are people listening that are in some kind of transition right now, yeah, there might be a moment where some people fall away. It may be forever, and it may be just temporarily. But what I can say is, once you get really rooted in who you are, it's like a game of tug of war. There's nothing to tug against. And I think you will find that usually people kind of get on board. That's my experience.
I would agree that you have to lead, right? My first book, I have 3 books, but one of them is called Fit to Love, How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract the Love of Your Life. And that book was really about the self-care routine and the self-love underneath the self-care routine, and about that you have to be the one who loves you first, because you end up being that beacon of energy and vibration that attracts people who will treat you the way that you treat you. And so it's not, you know, if you're looking for someone else to treat you better and they don't, well, you have to go within and say, well, if I can't love and respect myself, why would I expect somebody else to? And I think people struggle with, I know I did, and again, in the situation that I was in, it was more of the support, the lack of support, the lack of belief, the threatening, oh, if I do this, people will be threatened by that because of their stuff. But it's rocking the boat. I know one of our podcast Mastermind members had said that she was afraid that things would change. And I said, things will change. Things will change.
Yeah.
You stepping into who you are will change you. But here, like, so pick one. You can be suffering and therefore eventually depressed because you're repressing who you really are, or you can, in faith, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe the difference is when you have such a strong faith and being a reverend and doing the work that you're doing, I think the stronger connection to God, source, creator, universe, when we really, 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 truly in ourselves believe, then there's nothing to be worried about. I've had conversations with people in the past who have been worried about, let's say, politics or something. And I know they're churchgoers. So I would say things like, hold on, you go to church? Yes, I do. Do you believe in God? Yes, I do. Then let God handle it.
What?
And it's like, and it's because people in their, you know, as they get older, like worrying is what their job is. Like, what do I do if I'm not worried? I'm supposed to worry, right? But it's that idea that people say they believe and they don't believe, and say they trust and they don't trust. And we all get tested on this, I think, on a regular basis, to really, even myself included, in this next evolution of who I am growing in the next couple of months, going, okay, like if I really trust, then there's parts of me that I have to forgive and give love to and keep connecting to, and acknowledge the fear that makes me not trust, and then to trust. So for the people that are out there that are listening, and I know there's a lot of them, they're on this precipice, they're on this edge, and it's that I'm going to pull back out of fear, because again, it's what I know, even though I might be miserable or uncomfortable or unhappy and I don't have what I want, but I'm unwilling to take that next step into claiming my uniqueness, into claiming something more than what I have, because I don't want to get criticized, because I don't want to rock the boat. What would your advice be for people? And it might be faith-based, because I just made that connection right now. Like the solid foundation that you have, I believe, is really the fuel and that glue, if you will, of some of those transitions, because you have faith. And so many people don't have that, and they kind of believe, but they really don't believe. They don't know what they believe. I had a family member pass away, and I watched everybody question their faith. Now, I had gone down a different path and asked questions. I'm a truth seeker. I'm a Pisces with a lot of Sag in me. So I was a kid going to different churches asking, why do you do this and we do that? Why do you do this and we do that? Like, I just wanted to understand why. And when I found all my answers, right, of the way the world works and why, right, I now have a very solid belief system. But so many people just routinely do things and then don't question why they do it until something tragic happens and they have to reevaluate, well, what do I believe? And then they're uncomfortable in the lack of belief and connection to that. So what would your advice be to someone who's wanting to take that step into allowing their uniqueness to come up and out, sharing it with others, and having the confidence and the trust and faith that it's going to be okay on the other side?
So what I like to do is, faith is a big word to me. I sometimes don't really know what that means, because even though I'm a super dreamy person, I'm very science, fact, business based in my core. And so I want to know the proof. And so science now understands that down to our tiniest neurons, we are comprised largely of vibration and wave. So where I may not be able to have faith that I have absolute wholeness or health, or I have complete, the love of my life is coming, or I have all the money that I need, where I may not be able to like really hold on to faith that that's happening, especially if I have a track record of, an empty bank account, broken relationship, that kind of stuff. What I can trust is that if down to my tiniest neuron, I am comprised largely of vibration and wave. And if we attract at like vibratory frequencies, then if I choose to find ways to build up my spiritual muscles to oscillate at a higher vibrational frequency, I will attract like kind. That's why before I got married, whenever I would break up with somebody, I'd work really, really hard on myself so I could grow, so the next one would be better, because I would be, right? So the idea, our spiritual boot camp, the work that we get to do, it's what we do when in the kind of prayer that I do. It's an activating prayer. It's not denominational based. It's based on causing myself to be so grateful that I am part of this universe, and the universe contains it's eternal and it's unwavering. All the wholeness of life is within the universe, all of the vitality, all the health, all the abundance, and I'm made in that. So if I'm made in that, I'm already connected with whatever it is I desire, with the core quality of it. So the work, whatever it is that somebody's trying to bring into manifestation right now, is to cause yourself to become aware of that quality that you desire. So if what you want is a man or you want a woman, what's the quality you want back of that? I want a loving partner. Then you become so, you juice yourself with the quality of love, become so aware that love is everywhere, that you're connected with love, you're made in love, that the presence of God, source, nature, higher consciousness, Krishna, by whatever name you call it, that presence is love, and it made you, so you're made of love. And then as the work is it's like a workout. The more you do it, the more you build up those muscles, the more time you spend at this higher vibratory frequency. And then the efforting goes way down, because you start to attract to yourself people, places, circumstances, and events that are meeting you at this heightened vibratory frequency where you choose to live. Is that clear? It sounds like
my audience is, I teach law of attraction. So it's law of attraction, but you're using the science of law of attraction, which is quantum physics. So, when you talk about frequency, and what's fun about this science, that's not a belief system, right? It's the science, is how it also evolves in pairs with, sort of like when you're talking about your spiritual muscles. I refer to the work of Gay Hendricks often in The Big Leap and Upper Limiting, because it literally, for some people that say they listen to Abraham or they do law of attraction stuff, and it's about, think a better thought and feel better. And that can be too oversimplified for people, because they're like, well, I tried to do that. And I think the next stage of when I married those two ideas together was, we have this temperature vibrational set point where we only believe that we can receive so much love, success, abundance, and joy. It's sort of that, I can only keep the temperature on 70 degrees. God forbid I make it a little bit colder, a little bit warmer, right? I have to pay too much money in air conditioning or heating. Okay, it's the same thing. Like when we hit that wall of, I have manifested this, I am in the vibration of it, but now I can't hold on to it. Why not? Because I don't believe that I deserve it. I'm not used to feeling or allowing more. So so I think when you talk about that spiritual exercise, that's what that is. I can get to a better feeling place. Now, can I sustain it? Yeah. To receive and to allow myself to have it. Versus, people that, win the lottery. The reason why they lose it is because they didn't earn it. And not that there's a judgment about anyone towards that, but they don't feel they deserve it. So they have to get rid of it because they're not in alignment. They want it, but then they haven't practiced allowing it and receiving it at that level. And I think there's so many relationships, and why, like you're saying, you worked really hard. So did I. That's what Fit to Love was about. It was about, look, it wasn't about love of your life is some person's going to magically make everything better for you. It's, you have to be the love of your life, and you have to show and be the example of how you want to be treated and show up in the world. So it's your job to work on your stuff to attract someone at a higher level, because you're going to attract where you are, not what you want. You're going to attract where you are. It's a mirror.
Right.
And yeah.
So then the next piece with this is that's part of the spiritual discipline. But I think what makes it more compelling is when you're on your purpose, because then it helps you get into a flow state. A flow state is when you're doing your life's passion, and it's when you do something where hours pass like minutes. And some of the things that we can do to clarify that for those listening, these are kind of fun little practices to do. Go through all your old yearbooks, go through cards that you've received, or you can actually send out a little inquiry to a group of people in different areas of your life and ask them to describe you in 3 adjectives, right? And then what you do is you lump them in synonyms. And what you will find is that you have been seen your whole life. Those core qualities about you are probably the drivers. Like when I look through things that were written about me in my baby book, all the synonyms go back to inspiration, right? And I'm growing, so things are starting to change and what those qualities are. I have the opportunity where I speak regularly, so I get a lot of feedback afterwards. And I still, to this day, I write down every adjective that people describe what they experienced. And I just notice, like, I'm charting how it's shifting, which shows how I'm growing and what I'm stepping into. So that's one really fun kind of way to see what the quality is that's seen, like, by family members that I thought, like, what do they know? They're not spiritual, or they don't get me. Like, they don't understand me. Every single one. It's just remarkable. So that's a fun thing you can do. You can also, you can go back and ask yourself, like, what did you used to love to do when you were a child? What are the activities where, you could just go and go and go and go and go? And then you ask yourself, well, what's the quality that I experienced when I was doing that? So for some people, like I had clients when I had a coaching practice that, one woman, it was basketball. She loved basketball. She played basketball. And for her, the answer to kind of get jump started back in her life was she started coaching a young girls basketball team. And that was perfect for her. For other people, it may not be doing that exact activity, but asking what's the qualities, I call them qualities of God, qualities of life, by whatever name you want to call them. They're universal qualities: love, peace, joy, prosperity, freedom, justice, integrity. Like, what are the driving qualities for you? And you'll notice that activity that you used to love doing, find out what the quality is that you experienced back of it. And then you can find what are some activities that you'll experience that quality in now. And that becomes like a jump starter for your creativity, because when you're in those flow states, that's where you get guidance, you get awarenesses, you get illumination, right? So for example, when I was growing up, I was a runner, and I would run and run and run. And the quality that I experienced was freedom. I felt so free. I would run at night, and I would run and run and run and run. And so as I grew up, and I'm not running as much anymore, I find other things that give me other activities where I feel that kind of, like when I meditate, if my meditation is not closing my eyes and creating my grocery list, but if it's a real meditation, where I kind of like get that lift off, it's almost like getting the runner's high.
Yeah.
Right. So those are some things: finding activities you used to love to do as a child. What's the quality of God that you experienced when you were doing them? And either doing them again or finding something else and that creates a flow state. And then another thing is to dress your environment. I love this. This is like whatever quality most inspires you, if it's freedom or fierceness or joy or love, to find pictures, images, quotes, symbols, and plant them around your environment, at your desk, in your bathroom, on your bedside, because we have a physical, psychological, chemical, emotional response to everything around us, all day, every day. So if you consider that, we're being bombarded. You walk outside the door, you turn on the news, we're being bombarded, and we are automatically having responses. So we take the helm of that when we start to dress our environment to trigger us with the qualities we do desire, as opposed to what we do not.
Absolutely. It's like the transference of others' energy fields that we don't necessarily want. Like turning on the news, in my opinion, is a very bad idea. Okay. It's a very bad idea. Going on social media first thing in the morning, bad idea, right? It's being able to claim, like you said, and dress your space. I'm looking at my space right now. I'm like, most people would be dying in my space right now. But unfortunately, as the Pisces in me is comfortable with certain amount of chaos.
I want to say something about that, though. Your space has an emotional anchor to it, because that's where you do your work. That's where you do your passion. So even if it's cluttered, my place is cluttered too, so I'm making myself feel better right now. Even if it's got some disarray to it, there's so much anchor in the passion and the love and the feeling tone that you've got in there.
Yeah, while it is completely cluttered. I mean, not completely, I'm not a hoarder, but I have like pictures of all my shows, and I've got living pictures from events. I've got mantras on the wall. I've got from my last event. I love JJ. Thank you, JJ, for all that you do. Like, I have notes. I've got pictures of my love. I got, and then my desk is full of stuff and books that I'm reading. Right. It's just, for some people it's a little too much, but I agree. And it makes me, as I'm thinking, because we're going to be moving, and when we move, I'm already visioning my office. Not that it still won't be the same, because I'm still me and I'm taking me with me, but it will, but it's being able to say, oh, what are the things that I don't have here? I'd like a little more space. What could I do? Oh, a live plant would be nice. A fountain, if it's appropriate, just stuff like that. So, and it is very feng shui. In fact, every time I would move, I would feng shui my place, because like when I was looking for love, I would make sure that I would have things that were different colors of red and pink and fiery, and things that were pairs of things, not a single thing, and pictures of pairs of things. Right. Or if you want to feel a certain way in a room, like you said, you choose those things because they all still have a frequency. The messages that you think that they promote, art's one of those funny things that you can find, depending on where you are, extract something very different out of a piece of art. But music and colors and shapes and all of that matter. And not that I'm promoting clutter, I'm not, because when you have a clear space, you do have better flow. And every feng shui person right now is like literally cringing as I'm talking. And I'm not promoting clutter. Yes, we want to clear clutter. But again, it's like, to me, it's that balance of, can I be comfortable in any situation? It has to come from the inside. Yes, the outside will help the inside. You can go both ways, inside out or outside in. But if you're looking at your space and you're having an anxiety attack, just like an alcoholic can't blame the alcohol for their emotional issues, it's not the space's fault necessarily that you have no peace inside. So I always identify when people are too OCD about something. That's like, no, it's not about the control of the space. It's what's going on. You try to control the space because you're trying to control what's inside of you, but you can't run from that. We have to go within or connect, right? Whether it's a lack of trust in source, God, universe, Buddha, whatever, Jesus, or yourself. And I think that has keeps coming up for me. That keeps coming up for me is like something I think a lot of people, again, just talk to. They talk about like, oh, I trust, I believe, I go to church or whatever. I meditate, I pray. Yeah, but how much do you actually believe it in your body? How much do you own that? And I think that's completely tied into, for me, it was anyway, on a spiritual side, believing in divine contracts, believing in sacred contracts, believing in like multiple lifetimes, believing in having a purpose, believing in incarnating and choosing my parents, completely taking 100% responsibility for everything in my life as a lesson, not as punishment, not as shame, not as I did something wrong. But for the people that need to bridge that gap, I think that your uniqueness matters. There's too many people, myself included, who are doing that compare thing. And why I love this topic, and I want to talk about that. I want you to, go through with us, like walk us through the comparison issue that people have with, but I'm not her, or I'll never be you, or I can't do what they did, or I don't want that expectation on me, or I'll never be as good as XYZ. What would you say to that?
I think, well, for those of you listening, you know what it does inside you when you're comparing yourself, and it's just wrenching, and it just spins energy and sucks energy. And, I regularly have to pull myself back and say, like, what is my thing? Because when I'm on my thing, it's more enjoyable and it's more effective. So I would say that, if you're looking at somebody else, like I think of Michael Beckwith, and he's an inspiration for me in a lot of ways. There are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences. If I try to be him, if I try to get on stage and do like leg kicks and stuff in my little dresses, not going to work. Like I think there's a point where you can appreciate something out there. Like there are people that I really appreciate what they're doing and how they're throwing it down. But I'm always more powerful when I'm 100% me. There's a CEO of a very large Fortune 50 company that I worked with, And he said when he walks into a meeting, no matter what kind of meeting it is, he knows if it's about his business, he knows more than anybody else in the room. And I think for everybody listening, like, you know more about yourself than anybody else in the room. And when you're on that, there's a lot of confidence to that, and a lot of freedom to that, So I think for a lot of my life was just felt hard because I was trying so hard to fit into other people's boxes. And as I started to own my own, sphere, it just gets more fun. And so that's why I talk so much about finding out what is clarifying and activating what's your thing, especially in this climate right now, in a world that has so many extreme areas up, from the environment, from finances, from health, from race relations and injustices that have been done. There's so many big extreme things. What's the way that you are like a soothing balm to all of this? What's the way that that your light makes a difference, right? And so it might be somebody opening up a cupcake business, right? It might be somebody else marching. It's like everybody being their thing. And so I mentioned a couple of the tools about, like, go through yearbooks or cards, or send out an inquiry and find out what are the adjectives people see, and notice what comes up over and over again. That's one way to get a sense of what your main way that you gift the world is. Another is reflecting on activities you used to love to do and what's the quality you felt behind them. That's another sign about your driving qualities. And most importantly, I think, is taking time to listen. Taking time to be quiet and listen. So if that means sitting in the lotus position or cross-legged, or sitting in a chair and listening to beautiful music, or focusing on the inhale and the exhale and doing some meditation, or going for a walk in nature, or maybe, when you work out, a lot of my great inspirations come when I'm sweating and pumping iron, and right. So find out what that activity is, what works best for you. And then schedule that in your day. And so the thing I like about exercise or walking is when you do an activity that creates a lightly hypnotic state where the body is engaged in a repetitive way, but not having to think about it necessarily, it allows the mind to be freed up, and you receive guidance. So create times for you to purposefully listen. And then one of the things that I do, one of the ways that life has started really expanding through me, is I began a practice of shamanism a couple years ago, and I went to Peru and I've studied with shaman. I was supposed to be back there again this year, and COVID changed that plan for now. But one of the practices that they teach, those in the Laika tradition, is that everything is alive. And so, like, I have an altar area, which if that's new for you, it's really just an area that has some pretty sacred things for me. And it's where I go and I meditate or do my thing. And it used to be just stagnant. Like, I would have pretty things and I'd go and I'd do my meditation. But in the shamanism practice, everything's alive. So I'll go and I'll stand before it and I'll just notice, like, does it need some fresh water, and spritz it with some rose water? Does it need fire and light a candle? Does something need to move? And what happens is, when I engage my surroundings, everything, with reverence and respect, I can't even describe it enough how alive life becomes, and how synchronistic, and how much guidance is available to us. I'll tell you a quick story. This was mind-blowing to me. So I'm studying with Alberto Villoldo, very accomplished shaman. He wrote Shaman, Healer, Sage, and One Spirit Medicine, many books. And he takes out a bag of rocks, just rocks that he picked up on the path outside. He gets somebody to use as to practice with, and he tells the person, hold the rocks, shake them, and just think of whatever question you have. And then the person spreads the rocks on this cloth. It's called a mesa that Alberto had in front of him. And Alberto, all he did, he took his hand one by one over each rock, and he was quiet. And he sensed, and he began to speak from that place, right? And the things that were coming out of him were like amazing. This guy, he was like crying. He's like, that's so helpful. And so then, of course, he turns to all of us in the class. And so I got paired up with somebody I hadn't met before. She had joined the class late. I didn't know her. I'd never had a conversation with her. She goes like this with her rocks. She spreads them on my mesa cloth. I go like this thinking, oh boy, this is really going to be dumb. So in my mind, I'm starting to think like, what could I make up that would be generic enough, that like it would work. But then I let all that go and I just kind of sat into it. Can I tell you the stuff that came forward, like about a baby that was on the way, that she, like such details that nobody would know. And she's just looking at me stunned. But here's the thing. When we turned the tables, she did the same thing for me. I'm saying all this to say, as far-fetched as it sounds, that kind of connection is available to all of us. I was in an environment like the environment JJ creates with all her shows. I was in an environment of support and a heightened frequency. So I think it came to us more easily in that field. But this is what's available. This is the juiciness of life, right? That's
Absolutely. It's exciting to me. And you know what? 3 years ago, I would have believed you. And I would have thought, well, maybe that's not for everyone. But since I've been doing this work, since I've been doing my live events, since I've been in this energy, my intuition has strengthened completely. I created a course called Strengthening Your Intuition, because just like you talked about those spiritual practices, we can create those neural pathways in our brains to receive that information, and we can change that and get into that higher frequency where it's more available. I love how you explained the exercise, because everybody in my community knows I get my downloads when I rollerblade. every time when I'm rollerblading and there's music in my ears, right? My physical body, my conscious mind are so busy that I have this clear channel for spirit to come through, for my subconscious to make connection, for my higher consciousness to be made aware. And I'll get pictures and I'll get ideas and like sticking to it. And you own a business, or you want to know what you should be doing, and you want to connect with source more and get these downloads and be guided and co-create like that. Don't exercise for physical reasons, exercise for your business reasons and for your mental and emotional health reasons and your purpose on the planet reasons, because I'm telling you, you will find something that works for you, and you'll be like it's literally like you have to put it in your schedule, because it's that creativity time. It's where you're most into creativity, because you're not in your brain. You're moving so much that you can allow that to happen. So I think people are probably smiling thinking, yep, that's what JJ does. When she's rollerblading, she gets her downloads, or when I'm walking on the beach or something. So thank you for that, because it's exactly how I experience it also. It doesn't happen for me in meditation. It happens for me in movement always.
Yeah, for me when I walk. And so I'd invite those listening. The next step is to have some accountability. So, like I have a million reminders that go off on my phone. Like I plug in reminders, right? To make sure I take time to listen is what I call it. And whether it's sitting and meditating or walking or whatever it is, but maybe you have an accountability person that you remind each other, like we're going to do this today, and you don't have to do it together, but something to help. Like, I'm thinking a few years ago, I wanted to lose weight, and I got one of those tracker things that shows how many steps you take. And that was perfect motivation. Then I got one of those calorie counter things that are on the phones now, and that made it so easy. So anything that can make the practices easier, for me, it helps me to have the discipline. So if what you're wanting is to get clear and more clear about what your purpose is, if you're wanting to get more clear guidance and connection, schedule it like you would anything else that matters, as important as brushing your teeth or eating your meals. And then just notice, you be the one to notice how things shift, because, that you're opening up to complete possibility here. I have people I've worked with that are like, there's no money in the bank. There's no obvious source of revenue anytime soon going to come in. But when they do these practices and they take time to listen, you change your frequency, which changes your experiences. And all of a sudden, a way from no way shows up. Unexpected good from unexpected places appears. So we want to live and play in that realm, not just to get our needs met, but to realize our purpose. That's what makes all of this, like wearing a mask for 8 months, like all of this worthwhile is when we're on our game, on our brilliance, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we tell people where they can get more of you and your book, which obviously is juliemoret.com. That was my bell stick that just fell over. Julie, so you can go to juliemoret.com for her book, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I just want to close out this idea of your uniqueness matters, because again, that whole comparison thing. And I know you mentioned, like, it might be you making a cupcake shop and serving in that way. And it might be, I really just want to, again, hone in on that point. Everyone who's listening, I want any doubt and limiting beliefs that come up to stop you to realize that voice of doubt and self and disconnection and not being in alignment with who you really are is what that's about. And the importance, how we need it now. We need it in this time and space. We need it always, but we've wanted something for so long. We've wanted this consciousness break. We've wanted to up level consciousness. We've wanted change. Well, guess what, guys? It's happening. Now, you can look at the circumstances and say, well, it's not happening the way that I'm comfortable with, right? Because change rarely is comfortable, right? So we have, like, we're the caterpillar who's coming out, and we're going to be the butterfly at the end of this. But that transition, we all can still help that, make that possible. And not only in your life, but in other people's lives. And so one of the reasons why today's show is called Your Uniqueness Matters is because it isn't about comparing to others, but it's about the importance of you standing in your power. It's about the importance of you being in relationship with divine and with yourself, and giving those gifts and talents and not squandering them to yourselves, or holding yourself back in fear for the rest of your life and feeling depressed and anxious because you have no outlet for the gifts that want to come forth through you. So if there's any last ideas about that, how important it is right now that every single person honor and acknowledge and accept and allow that uniqueness of who they are to come through and why we need it.
You know what that brings up for me is, they say forgiveness is not a one and done thing. Forgiveness is a practice. We keep doing it. We have to re-up on it every day. And I think the same is true for our uniqueness. Like, I think it is normal human behavior to compare. So yes, that's something that happens. And I know for myself, it happens. I'll see a new speaker come on stage, and sometimes I'll feel like, oh, well, what am I needed for? That person speaks good. So why do I need to be around? And so for myself, what I do when I have that feeling, and I have it often, is I have to go back to my sit spot, my little sacred space, and I begin to go back to the qualities that I mentioned, those qualities that want to be known through me, inspiration and fierceness and freedom. And I play in those qualities. And when I play in those qualities, creation comes, writings come, talks come. And then I'm back into me. So whatever it takes, because there's always going to be somebody who's ahead of you. There's always going to be somebody behind you, but we don't seem to notice them. There's always going to be somebody who seems to be ahead of us. And I would say, yeah, happens. And then go back and play at what your thing is, what charges you, because when you're on it, nothing compares. And what you produce will be so much more impactful when you're coming from those core qualities that are yours, that were like planted in your DNA. You got something somebody else didn't get. It's yours. And the universe needs everything. We're like this great big quilt, and everybody's got their patch. When you're on yours, the thing fits together. When somebody's not doing their part, they're holes, right? So I would say when comparison comes up, you can start to notice it, like, oh, wow, look, I'm doing it again. Take a breath and then go back to you. And like what makes you you, and play in that area and create from that realm.
Beautiful. Let's talk about how people can have more of you. Let's talk about, obviously she's going to be at Agape at time. She's at Agape. So we talked about that with Reverend Michael. But you have your website and your book. So let's talk about those.
Yeah. This is my book. What's Your What? How to Ignite Your Unique Brand. And it's actually on a book sale until January, I think. We're doing a holiday book sale. So you can get it on Amazon. It's not on sale there, but you can get it on Amazon. But if you go to juliemoret.com, we've got a sweet little book sale going on. And then I'll be teaching, I think, a prayer class at the Agape International Spiritual Center in January. And most everything I do is on Instagram. So that's Rev Julie Moret.
Yes. And I look forward to, hopefully we can do a little Instagram live to help promote this show. Yeah. But it's been a pleasure today. I love your centeredness. I'm feeling you have earth in you. Like when you talked about that stability, like your moon or your rising are probably earth signs, or one of them is. You definitely have fire too somewhere. Because I love when I've witnessed you in person on stage, you're very connected, and not that I'm saying other people aren't connected, but there's a difference of like your passion is very well channeled in an extremely focused way. Like there's some people that have energy and their energy is all over the place and they're physically not holding the container to streamline that energy. And your power is so focused and so aligned, like that it embodies you and it spreads so quickly. My mother had come to, when we moved into this place last year, it was not a choice that we had. I was renting a house for 9 years that they decided to sell it. And after being in a place for 9 years, was told I had 60 days to find a new place and move, which was extremely uncomfortable. But but my mother had come to help us move. And so during the moving week, I said, well, we're not going to move on Sunday. We're going to go to church. We're going to go to Agape. And then we're going to go to, at the top time, it was the Greek food festival in Redondo Beach. We're going to go to the Greek food festival. We're going to take the day off. We need a rest. And you were doing the sermon that day, and which was delightful for her. And I think the speaker and the singer, I don't remember who she was, but my mother ended up buying her CD, and like it was like one of the better experiences that she had had. I don't think, not that she doesn't connect to Reverend Michael, but she connected with you more. She's also a Pisces, So I love the power and the example that you have, and that your light is, I don't want to say unstoppable in the way of like you're trying to force it down someone's throat. You're just so who you are in your energy that that whole Marianne Williamson quote of like your light allows others to step further into their light, I believe. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming on the show today. And everyone check out the book. Again, it's juliemoret.com or at Instagram at Rev Julie Moret. And we're going to hopefully talk to you again. I really appreciate you coming on and giving this message. It's so needed right now. And I appreciate all of your energy, your focus, your passion, and your purpose, especially right now.
Thank you. My pleasure being here. And thank you for everybody listening. Thank you. Thank you.